Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and thanks for stopping by yet again. Got a number of things I want to share with you today. If I pull them all up here, sure I get them. Okay. Now, the situation regarding the canal is pretty quiet right at the moment. There's a lot of activity going on, but it's not the contentious argument type. It's just the business of getting this thing settled. We have an audit going on of the two Chinese or Hong Kong ports, Hutchison, signed back in the 90s, that are now in their second contract. These are concessions. They don't own the ports. They just have the concession. But at the same time as that, as you probably heard, BlackRock, a group of investors, has come in and offered to, not only offered, they are buying Hutchison's ports overseas, and both of these are included in it for a $23 billion affair, dollars, and I think Hutchison will go home at about $19 billion of that. And then there's some minority interests that have to be satisfied. Well, okay, but it all falls under our purview. So the point is that there's the agreements, the contracts are written in such a fashion that if for some reason the company has to drop out, has to get out, and wants to, and well, it can be done. Let's put it that way. And they have to follow certain agreements, and of course we have to have an agreement with this new group who come in and run it, and so on. But that's all done, not through the Canal Authority. They don't get involved with that. That's the government, but it's also the Panama Maritime Authority and so forth. But this is not a canal activity. It will be taken care of one way or the other. In any case, it looks like they're on their way out, one way or another. Okay. Now, they've got an $8 billion investment plan. They're on the verge of beginning, well, they're not on the verge, they've begun, but they really need to get moving on, which includes the Rio Indio and several other projects for the canal zone itself to improve it commercially and its use for the country. But I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. What I'm going to do is there's a Bank of America report, and it's very nicely done. It's attractive, easy to read, and it goes bang, 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 hits on the main points. They're quite capable of writing much longer reports. And they can be quite critical when they feel like it, because they are involved with placing bonds and buying and selling of bonds for corporate clients and so forth. And so they're very sensitive about areas in which they're active, and this is one area where they're active. So they come down. What I like about them is they're just blunt. They just say it like it is. The ratings agencies are always very careful in how they word everything, and it's very diplomatic of them. But the B of A, that's cool. So it's out, and it was before the BlackRock came forward with their offer to buy. So you won't see that mentioned in it, but it covers pretty much everything else. And if you're sort of behind in this or whatever, feel free to download it. It's an interesting document, and it's right under the text, in the text right under this video. Okay, now we're pushing through the final stages of Social Security. That has been one challenge. It has been, they've been all over the country. They've talked to citizens from one end to the other. They've had so many different, we had, I don't know what total. I knew they had 200 proposals at one stage. Talk about everybody getting involved. This is about what it boils down to. And it has not been easy, and it's not over with yet. They're in the final stages of it, and it's very tense and nervous because it's Social Security, and you know how that can be very sensitive in your society, I'm sure, too. It has nothing to do with the administration of Washington, D.C. or anything of that sort, or the canal. This is strictly internal, and there's already been one demonstration against it, and which is legal, perfectly all right for them to do. It's a democracy here. But in this case, they got out of hands. I hadn't seen this in years, and started throwing rocks and bricks and what have you. This is a construction union. And I thought, what is wrong with you people? The last time they did it was a total disaster for them. Well, here they go again. Well, they, of course, were arrested, and large numbers were, and it went through the whole affair. But that's the way it is, and so it was brought to an end. And I was actually down in that general area. I didn't even know it was going on. It was one area, but it was where it was going on. It was hot and heavy, and people howling and shouting at each other, and tear gas and all this stuff. Not our sort of thing here normally. So, but this is sort of an issue made for groups like this. There's a teachers union also concerned with it, and some others. And there are going to be demonstrations again. And that's the weirdest part, is that the retirees are very well organized, but they're not the ones that are most concerned here. It's the unions, and so be it. But if you hear about it, the last time when we had these recently, when there actually was an outbreak of violence, they started reporting it up in the U.S. as if it had something to do with the canal. It had nothing whatsoever to do with the canal. Some idiot down here went and burned an American flag. I think they thought that was cute and get them more publicity, because it's basically a PR event. And that didn't make it any easier, but that has nothing to do with it. And we will get through whatever demonstrations are coming down the road, because this is the way it works. And it's not the first time. So there's difficult topics. There's no easy way. The president's been insistent that we find a way to actually bring this into balance, and he's fought tooth and nail for it. The National Assembly is upset, and they know people don't want the aids increased, and oh my gosh, so it's been tense and difficult. But that's political. That's how democracies work. They work it out, and they will continue doing that until they get it done. Once that is done, whatever the ultimate result, then we move from there to the mine issue. And people for a long time have been saying, what about the mine? What about the mine? I say, don't worry about it. It's still there. It's in the background, so on, all that. Because you stay away from those things when you aren't part of that process, and you don't know. You don't want, people would love to go out and make all sorts of explanations that they'll forget about 2 months later because they were flat out wrong when they made them. I stay away from them until I have better grip on which, but I did know, of course, we all knew, the discussions were still quietly underway. But the government had been very clear they were not going to go back. They were being threatened with arbitration and going directly to arbitration. They said, we're not going to discuss this with you under those circumstances. And then there's been some unpleasantness here and some sort of snarky, arrogant stuff going on in the company. It didn't get him anywhere. So, but everyone's pretty much in agreement now that once the Social Security thing is finished, the government and issues like arbitration will just be put on hold as they can be. Arbitration it's not the same. You don't have to go through it. If you can come to an agreement, everybody's happy. But anyway, at that point, they will sit down and talk about it, and it's going to entail some work, some hard work, to bring it up to speed and what it needs to be. But that's the very next thing on that list. So it's the canal, and then it's Social Security, and then it's this the mine. There are other things happening too, and we don't know where all of them are going to go. We have quite a bit of money coming into the country, but I've got all the economic figures through the end of last year, and they're good. But anyhow, the point is, more importantly, I think, is that we're not back to the stability that we once had, and it's a great part because money's coming in larger amounts in certain areas and less amounts in others. There's an imbalance, and that's showing up in employment and unemployment, a number of other things. So long story short, that is not satisfactory to people, and we've got a lot of work to do on that. But there are a lot of possibilities for that happening. And from the real estate market, for those of you who are interested in that, I mean, we found, and our little effort to help people here, that if you're looking at the $500,000 up level, you're really at the very active market. And there are still definitely discounts, for sure. But it's a very active market. I mean, people coming in buying as well as selling. As you get further down in the middle level, Well, just to say, for those 150 to 250 in that range, anything's possible. I mean, it's not. I shouldn't say anything is possible, but there are people who will happily bargain, others who will unhappily bargain, but bargain nonetheless, because they're not getting the action that the higher end are. Now, see, the higher end are from the business community, and they're used to this sort of thing going on with the canal, with other countries and banks and everything else, and they can see with their eyes, and they know from their own experience that this is, regardless of what happens here, unless we lost control of the canal, and we will not, hear me, then we are going to have to, we will be the place to go and the place to be. Perfect location, great facilities, everything else. We would have a lot more of it, oddly enough. And this is one of the problems with some of you coming down, is that we're a Boeing company. And actually Airbus hasn't been perfect here, but Boeing, has had problems. And they have a back order, and it's all through Latin America, which has traditionally been Boeing territory, that people are waiting for their planes. And we are definitely, Copa Airlines, which is a privately owned airline, it's not the national airline, but a government airline, but it's sort of our flag carrier. And we think very well of it. And they'd do anything. If they could just have the planes they've been waiting for so long now, they would open at least a half a dozen more routes, and there'd be a lot more flights. But that's not to be, and we can maybe branch out into some more international flights too. Anything is possible, but it's been extraordinarily frustrating to have to go through this. But that's that. Now the dollar, it continues to be quite strong up here. It's weakened a little tiny bit, but it's not really much to speak of. So you have to look at the currency you have, which may be strong at the States in comparison and useful, or it may be much tougher for you because you're out of balance completely with the dollar. So we'd like to see the dollar come down. I've been saying that for a couple of years now, and people keep saying, it's going to crash. Well, no, I just want it to come down. And it will eventually. It's not likely to crash. What it is it will go down, and we've got lots and lots and lots of experience in charts and graphs and everything else you want to on the subject. It seems to be the way things are going, and it will happen sooner rather than later, we hope, to a more balanced level at least. We're not anti-dollar at all. Otherwise, the market's open. People travel here all the time. I mean, there's no matter whether there's some people running around in the streets causing a hullabaloo over Social Security or whatever, no threat to you whatsoever at all, and nobody will even let you go through there, near there, if there's any sort of problem. Panamanians are very protective of foreigners and other people. Anybody else, actually, when something like this happens. About every 5 years we have something gets out of hand like this, but it's very rare, and thankful for that. But we may have another one. If we do, don't burst into tears for us. We'll make it through there. We've got experience with it. So it is, and anything can happen in this world today. You can't trust anybody. I mean, particularly even allies, to be allies when you expect them to be. You just don't know what to think is going to happen next. So you don't make assumptions that this is definitely going to happen, or this is definitely not going to happen. You run with it. You just go right along with it, and you adapt as it changes. And Panama's pretty good at that. And I have great confidence that we'll work our way out of this. And I have great confidence that for some of you, this is exactly the place to be. And if you come over and visit, you might agree with us. If not, by the way, as I always tell people, if the worst that will happen to you is have this great vacation and see the Panama's canal in operation, and it's just a sight to behold. So, on that cheerful note, thank you for stopping by. I look forward to talking to you again, not too distant future.